everybody. Welcome to the Red Ribbon Rally. And I know you're all thinking, Red Ribbon Week was last week. And yes, you're right, it was last week, but we're having the assembly today for two very important reasons. One, last week was really busy if you didn't notice. And number two, Red Ribbon Week covers a lot of very important topics, and they don't need to just be confined down into 1 week or talked about, once a year. So people die from things like impaired driving and distracted driving and drug abuse every single day. So we don't want to make it seem like Red Ribbon Week can only be reduced to 1 week every year. These are things you need to be thinking about every day. And we know that because we've seen it happen in our community. We know that these aren't just numbers. These are things that have happened to our own. And this is why we did the Ghost Out last week with the simulation, just to give y'all a feel of what it could be like for it to happen again. So take it seriously. All of our Ghost Out participants were asked to share with y'all what they would say if they only had one last chance to speak. So listen to what they have to say. We don't want anybody else to be a part of a statistic. We don't want this to happen to our student body again. We don't want to lose one of our own. So this is important, and take it seriously. Ask yourself the important questions, the ones that we often forget to ask ourselves until it's too late. So, Luke Freeman was indeed a class clown. Luke loved to laugh with his friends, play jokes, and have a good time. His life ended Saturday night on his way home from hanging out with friends. As he was going around a curve, a car veered into his lane. The driver of the car was under the influence and struck Luke head-on. He will never hear the laughter of his peers again. The driver of the car now faces charges of involuntary manslaughter.
Dear Mom and friends, every 50 minutes someone dies as a result of an alcohol-related crash. Wednesday I died. This is what I would say to you if I had the chance. I want to tell you, Mom, I love you one last time, and I'm sorry that you have to live the rest of your life without one of your sons because of an idiot's decision to drink and drive. To my friends, thank you for all the laughs and good times that we shared, and I'm sorry that we can no longer have these times. All y'all's good times will continue, but my good times ended last Wednesday. Don't make people suffer like the drunk driver made my mom and friends suffer.
Landon Conklin was a high school football player. After a big win, he and some friends got together for celebration. The night ended in tragedy when Landon and his friend and fellow football player, Cal Culpepper, were on the way home. A distracted driver crossed the road and hit Landon's truck. Landon was not wearing a seatbelt and he was ejected from the truck. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Cal was cut out of the truck by the jaws of life and flown to UMC Medical Center in Jackson. These two friends will never play sports again.
Dear Claudio, every day 9 people die from distracted driving incidents. Last Wednesday, I became a part of this statistic. If I could say one thing, I would tell my school and community that I want to be remembered for the way I lived, not the way I died. I also want to say sorry to the Culpeppers for forcing them to choose to discontinue Cal's life support and losing their son. I would also like to say to pay attention while you're driving, because the person who crashed into me and Cal probably didn't even realize they permanently changed 2 families' lives forever. Love you guys.
Rayleigh Bowles was everyone's friend. This past weekend, she was having the time of her life at her best friend's 18th birthday party. Rayleigh got carried away and she had too much to drink. Her best friend let her drive home, but Rayleigh did not make it that far. She lost control of her car and went off the road into a ditch. Rayleigh was pronounced dead at the scene. Her best friend let her leave a party, drunk. Was she really her best friend?
Dear seniors, every 50 minutes someone dies as a result of an alcohol-related collision. Last Wednesday, I became part of this statistic. If I could say one last thing, I would want to tell you that I thought I'd be okay. I thought it was only one drink and I was invincible. Because of my actions, I won't be able to walk across the stage at graduation. I won't be able to go to college with you, and I'll never be able to get married. Y'all will continue on with your lives, but mine's over.
Haley Irby, a band member, was an aspiring drummer. One night after a band competition, she went to a friend's house to celebrate. On the way home, she was distracted by her friend's Julie. Being distracted, she hit a truck head on. All other passengers sustained minor injuries, but she was in a coma for weeks. Haley recently succumbed to her injuries. Now her name is etched in stone.
Dear family and friends, every day 9 people die as a result of distracting driving. Wednesday I died. This is what I would say if I had the chance. Mom, Dad, grandparents, thank y'all for teaching me to love God. Thank y'all for giving me everything I need. I love y'all so much. Friends, thank all of y'all for making me laugh when I was down. Thank y'all for laughing with me through my good times and helping me through my bad times. I love each and every one of y'all. I'm so sorry y'all have to live through my loss, and I hope y'all learn from my mistake.
Sharon Touch was headed back to school. Scared she was going to be late, she decided to speed. In turn, running a red light. Sharon was T-boned in an intersection where she was ejected from her car because she was not wearing her seatbelt. She was pronounced dead on the scene. If only she would have worn her seatbelt, she would have made it back to school. But now she doesn't have to worry about being on time ever again.
To my parents and my brothers, I want you to know that I love you more than anything, and thank you for everything that you have done for me. And thank you for making me into the person I am today. To my friends, I love you so much, and I am beyond grateful to have been able to know you and to have spent a majority of my life with such amazing people. Thank you for all the love and the lives that we share. To my teachers, I am blessed to have been taught by such amazing people. I have learned so much from you all, and I couldn't have asked for any better. Finally, I want to apologize to everyone for the pain that I have caused you, and if it hadn't been for my mistake, I'd still be here today. I will miss you all, and I'm grateful for the time that I had with you.
Cole Castle was heading to a party with his date after the senior prom. Cole decided he would celebrate graduation by taking a few shots. After the party, Cole felt it was okay to drive, but on his way down TM Jones Road, he lost control of his car and tumbled down the gully. He and his friends were killed instantly. Unfortunately, Cole died before the prom flowers did.
Every 15 minutes, someone dies as a result of an alcohol collision. Last Wednesday, I became a part of this statistic. If I could say one last thing, I would tell my family and friends that I'm so sorry. I never realized the consequences of my action. I will never be able to work toward my dream job and never be able to hug my family again. I'm so sorry I messed everyone's life up. I hope y'all all can learn from my mistakes.
Trinity Nash was working towards graduating with honors. She went to a party with a friend where she was pressured to have a few drinks. At first, she stood her ground, but eventually Trinity gave in. She didn't think that she was drunk, so she decided to drive herself home. Tragically, she never made it. Trinity's hard work to graduate at the top of her class and go to college of her choice ended instantly. Just how smart was she?
Dear family, every 50 minutes someone dies as a result of an alcohol-related collision. Last Wednesday, I became part of the statistic. If I could say one last thing, I would tell my family I'm sorry. To Trenton, I know I was supposed to be the role model for you, but things didn't turn out that way. Always call for a ride. It's better than getting in trouble. It's better getting in trouble than not waking up. To my mom, I'm sorry. I guess we won't have that dream vacation. I love you. To Dad, our dream of playing with a college band won't come true now. I'm sorry.
Kyle Culpepper had been rescued from a car crash that took the life of his friend. He was flown to UMC Medical Center where he was placed on life support because of the severity of his injuries. After several weeks of treatment and heroic efforts, Cal's family had made the horrific choice of discontinuing life support because he showed no signs of life. Our community, who was suffering over the death of one student, is now grieving over the death of two, if only the other driver was not distracted.
To family and friends, every day 9 people die from distracted driving incidents. Last Wednesday, I became part of that statistic. statistic. If I could say one thing, I would tell my family that I love them and I cherish every moment I have with y'all. I wouldn't trade the world for them. Thank y'all for loving me even when I aggravated y'all to death. Mom and Dad, thank you for sacrificing your time and money to allow me to chase my baseball dreams. To my friends, thank y'all for cheering me up when I'm down and always being there for me. To Sister and Katie, live life to the fullest. Don't worry about me. Most important, thank you, Mom and Dad, for being such godly examples and allowing me to grow my faith. Because of this, I am now in heaven with my Lord and Savior. This is the best gift I could ever receive. Thank you.
Miss Leanne Smith was a dedicated high school teacher. One morning on her way to school, she remembered something she needed to tell her husband. And instead of waiting until she got to school, she decided to send a text message. She was distracted when the car in front of her stopped to turn. She ran into the back of the car at full speed. She died instantly, along with the occupants of the other car, a mother and her daughter, who were stopping at the store to pick up a special treat for the daughter's class. Miss Smith will now be remembered for how she died more than how she lived.
Dear students, if this were a real situation, my death would be the least sad out of all of these. Not because my daughter wouldn't be sad to graduate next year without her mother to cheer her on proudly. Not because my husband wouldn't be sad to grow old or older without me, but because I got to live a life shorter than I would expect if I had died at this age, but long enough to experience graduating high school, going to college, getting married, having a child of my own to watch grow into a wonderful person. My life has had so many blessings beyond measure. However, when a student dies, all that's left are the what ifs. What if this hadn't happened? What would she have become? Would he have gone to college, joined the military and served his country? Would she have settled down right here in Meridian, moved to New York or LA or Texas or Washington? Would she have married that boy that she dated in high school? Would he have been the father that was wrapped around his little girl's finger? You see, all that we would have left here in school of your life would be that empty chair. That chair in every class where you sat every day. That chair where you learned or slept or laughed with your friends. That it would remain empty every day. A painful reminder of you. No one would sit in it out of respect for you and your memory. But each day, everybody here would be reminded that you're not there. And when we could finally bring ourselves to laugh again, we would feel guilty because you're not there to laugh with us. And you never will be again. And there would be nothing we could do to change it. We would be left with if-onlys. If only he had called someone to get him from that party. If only she had ignored that last snap until she had gotten home. She was only 2 minutes away. If only he hadn't looked for that song on his phone. If only she had paid more attention to that curvy road. If only he had put on his seatbelt. But if onlys are like what ifs. They're wishful thinking, not reality. You guys, this really hits close to home to me. I know a lot of you in high school know my daughter Brayden. She wrecked on T.M. Jones last Saturday. When the wrecker pulled her car up from the hill, my heart skipped a beat. It was horrible. I knew that she and her friends were alive because God was with them. And I thank him for protecting them. I've seen some of the pictures of your wrecked cars, and I thank God for protecting you too. Brayden told me that she felt so guilty, but if something had happened to her friends, and she had survived, her guilt wouldn't bring them back. As a parent, if something horrible happened to my own child, I would gladly trade places, but I can't. All I can do is give her advice and pray. Don't take your lives for granted by being reckless or careless in a car. Call someone to pick you up if you need them to. Put down your phone. You'll be there in a few minutes. Don't get so caught up in having fun with your friends that you forget that their lives are in your hands when you are behind that wheel. Don't make us face that empty chair.
So now that we've heard from all 9 of our Ghost Out participants, I'm going to challenge you all to think of what people would think if that happened to you. Ask yourself, are you making right decisions? Are you on the right path? And just take a moment to let that all sink in. Now, we're going to switch over, and I'm very glad to say that we have Mr. Jonathan Fulcher to speak to us today, who is the area director for East Central Mississippi of FCA. So y'all give him a hand and welcome him.
Good morning. Today, as I was asked to come and share with you, I would like to take just a few minutes and challenge you this morning. As I hear the stories and I hear the obituaries and what would be said if that chair was left empty, I think about my own life. And I would love to stand up here in front of all of you and tell you that I've always made good decisions and made the right choices. But the reality is I've had a very hard life. And I've made a lot of bad choices, a lot of bad decisions whenever I was y'all's age. One of the reasons that I work for the ministry of FCA is because God called me to come and share my story. And my story starts when I was in 7th grade. And so you 7th graders, who's in 7th grade, raise your hand. In 7th grade, I made a choice. And I made a decision to start doing some things that I shouldn't be doing. And in 7th grade, it led me into high school to making worse decisions and worse things. And you may look at a guy who's standing in front of you as an FCA guy and someone who maybe you've seen speak and heard, and you're thinking, man, he's got it all together. But there's a life that you don't see, that it was a lot of heartache, there was a lot of uphill battles, and there's a lot of what ifs and if onlys that my life could have been and what should have been. But it all goes back to a choice that I made in 7th grade to do things that I shouldn't have done. And if I could go back to that 7th grade Jonathan sitting in a bleacher right now, somewhere, and look at him in the face and tell him, don't do it. I would beg and I would plead, don't do it. I would beg him and I would say over and over again, make good choices, make good decisions, because they will affect you not now, but they will affect you for all of the rest of your life. Decisions I made when I was in 7th grade still affect me today. And I'm 33 years old. So don't think the decisions and the choices you make now won't affect you later, because they will. And I want to challenge you with this as I close and I finish my part, is I want to ask you, are you a thermometer or are you a thermostat? What is a thermometer? A thermometer, if you listen, a thermometer is something that makes and it blends into the society that's around, that it takes what is the temperature in the room. It tells you what it is in the room and it adapts to where it's at, right? You look at the thermometer and you say, how hot is it in here? It'll tell you because it blends in with everybody else. But what does a thermostat do? A thermostat changes the temperature in the room. It sets the stage for how hot or how cold it's going to be in your room. How hot and how cold is it going to be at Clarkdale? Are you going to set the stage? Are you going to be the one who makes the change? Because I could read statistics to you and they would blow your mind with the amount of people that vape, the amount of people that drink, the amount of people that do drugs in 7th and 8th and in high school. But my challenge to you is to be a thermostat that changes the surroundings, that changes what's around you. Not to be a thermometer that blends in with everybody else. Not to be somebody who takes what everybody else is doing and makes it who they are, because that's who I was. When I was your age, I blended in with everybody else. I wanted to be cool. I wanted to be in the in crowd. I wanted to hang out and have the best friends. And so to do that, I made a lot of compromises. And those compromises led to a really hard life. Be the change. And I got 3 quotes I want to read you, and I want you to think about this. Carmelo Anthony, who is an NBA player, says this: Any decision I make is the biggest decision of my life. Carrie Russell, sometimes it is the smallest decisions that can change your life forever. And then John Maxwell, one of my favorite quotes that I live by, life is a matter of choices, and every choice you make makes you. This is my last statement. I want to challenge you. Are you willing to stand for something different, even if it means you have to stand alone? Stand for what's right and make good choices every single day. Thank you.